Good afternoon, audience from around the world. Welcome back to the VPET International Conference 2020. We hope you enjoyed lunch and are ready for more innovative ideas and thought-provoking discussions. Peter, we're both graduating soon. Do you consider yourself work-ready?
Oh, of course I do. Everything I learned at VTC helps me a lot. And I find the workplace training is the most rewarding. I find myself much better equipped with relevant skills, knowledge, and even dealing with people, you name it.
Really? Tell us more about it.
Well, I can go on for hours talking about my own experience, but I'm sure the audience would rather hear the perceptive insight from our guest speakers.
In just a few minutes, they will share with us their expert knowledge about why workplace training counts. Don't miss the chance to ask our panel members your questions.
The convener of this session is Mr. Eric Peng, JP, Director of Electrical and Mechanical Services Department, the Government of the Hong Kong SAR.
The panel members joining the discussion are Mr. Kevin O'Brien, Chief Executive of Jardine Engineering Corporation Limited, Hong Kong.
Mr. Patrick Wong, Executive General Manager of Operations Support, Hong Kong Aircraft Engineering Company Limited.
Mr. Josh Williams, Principal International Consultant of Skills International, New Zealand.
Mr. Carl-Fredrik Zachrisson, Managing Director of Scania Hong Kong Limited.
Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Peng and the panelists.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad to have you here today. We have many renowned specialists as our panelists and speakers today. Here is Kelvin and also Patrick, and online we have Carl and also George. They are in Hong Kong and in New Zealand. We also have a lot of guests and audience here in the DI in Hong Kong and also online in Hong Kong and around the world. Once again, welcome you to these sections. The title of our sections is Why Workplace Training Counts. So, I would like to ask this question. First, what is the first things that come up to your mind when you hear the word workplace training? Well, let me see. Perhaps you may think that this is the kind of mandatory training course offered by your employer, or you may think that, well, this is some kind of summer interns training. Indeed, the term workplace training often invoked an impression that it is a kind of one-off refresher training course offered by the employer, or a kind of knowledge update. And this kind of training may sometimes be offered at random places or sometimes on a scheduled program. However, what we're talking about workplace training is something different. We are talking about a structured training programs today. That is the kind of training that is used to bridge the gap between the on-the-job training and education and the industry, where the apprentice will go through the on-the-job training in the employee's setup and is concurrently sponsored to study and education programs for a relevant qualification. Like many other organizations who are focused to nurture talents in Hong Kong, we at the Electrical and Mechanical Services Department has implemented an apprentice training scheme for over 60 years. So far, we have trained up about 6,000 E&M professionals and technicians in Hong Kong. The success of our scheme stems from a robust training framework. So we are a strong believer and advocate on vocational training. and workplace training. I know we are just one of the examples of a success story in Hong Kong. And what we are focused today is to discuss and give you an idea what is the most important attribute in a successful workplace training and what your company, if you are an employee, should do in order to set up such a program. Now, in workplace training, there are many parties involved. The first thing come to my mind is the educational provider, who is the provider and assessor of the off-the-job training. Our organization today, that is the VTC, is surely the largest education provider in Hong Kong. The second one, who is very important, is the consultant. Because we need a robust training framework, so we need a consultant to advise the companies on how to set up such a robust training framework. So we have George from Skills Internationals today to give us an idea and his insights about vocational training. Last and not the least is the employer, who is the provider and assessor of the on-the-job training. Now we have 3 representatives today from them to give us an idea. That is Calvin from JEC. And also Scania, we have Carl and Patrick from HKSAR. They are all from the employer's point of view. Now, before we move on the sharing sections, let's see how much the audience here in Hong Kong and in worldwide know about workplace training and learning. Here we have a polling question which has been popped up on the screen, and you can vote for the most appropriate answer during the sharing sections. Now, after listening to the speakers, you may change your mind. Let us read out the question, that is, what is the most important factors that determines the provision of the best workplace training and learning opportunity for apprentices? You may choose A, the size of the corporation, B, technology proficiency, that is the corporations with advanced technology, C, the comprehensive assessment mechanism, or D, the support from the education provider. Now, polling will be stopped in about 12 minutes from now. And after the sharing provided by the 4 speakers, we will be reviewing the questions and answers together. So you may start polling now. And when you are polling, we are ready for the sharing sections. As the panelists with us today are experts in their fields, I would like to learn more about their work, about the experience in workplace training. Let's begin with George, who is now in New Zealand. George, could you tell us a bit on the myth about the apprenticeships? Well, one question you may like to know about is about, are they only for large corporations? Well, I give the time to George.
Thank you very much, Director Pan. Pan, good afternoon. Kia ora, warm Pacific greetings. It's a pleasure to speak to you briefly from New Zealand on some strengths and some myths around workplace training and apprenticeships. My thanks also to VTC and the organising team for bringing us together. I will just share my screen with you. Okay, so look, we are lucky in New Zealand for many reasons, but one of them is a strong training culture among our employers. We in New Zealand, we have one of the highest rates. Excuse me, there we are, thank you very much. We have one of the highest rates, in fact, the highest rate among OECD countries around the proportion of working people engaged in job-related training. A lot of that training is, of course, informal, a person trained for their job and competent for their role, but not necessarily assessed against industry-wide standards or for the award of recognised credentials and qualifications. In New Zealand's result there absolutely busts the myth that formal training is only for large companies or corporations. 95% of New Zealand's firms employ 5 or fewer employees. 98% have 50 or fewer employees. And that's why we use and recommend intermediary organisations such as industry training organisations. They work on behalf of industries, they manage training and assessment, and they support both the employer and the apprentice. It means that even a tiny business can plug into a national system of quality assured training, even when they've got no HR department, no instructional designer, and no specific expertise in workplace learning or assessment. We also, as you can see on the graph, see stronger earning results for people undertaking workplace training pathways. That's because of the earn and learn model and because there was already a match between the training and a need in the labour market. So, of course, I can't speak to you today without, of course, reflecting on our current context as all countries face a downturn in the wake of COVID-19. Certainly, unemployment in New Zealand increased in the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis, and our training numbers crashed as a result. And it took that 10 years for the numbers of apprentices in our economy to get back to where they were before the recession. So my message back here at home and for everywhere is let's not do that again. A downturn is the time to double apprentices, not to halve them. Apprenticeships keep people working while training and becoming productive. Training apprentices is always a service to an industry, and in times that are tough, it's also a service to a community. And that does take support for businesses who are facing an uncertain future and maybe struggling. So we do look to governments and policymakers, and we have seen here in New Zealand a strong focus on trades training and apprenticeship in our recent budget, including supporting employers to retain those apprentices. So we all, I think, need to look at how we make those similar collective efforts around training and upskilling our workforces, just as we are trying to stop the spread of that virus. So let me conclude by outlining what we see as the key components of successful workplace training. I've already mentioned the importance of connecting organisations, playing a key connecting role, particularly for small business. We keep the learner at the centre of our thinking, but we focus on employers as the key to the success of the model. That's ultimately because the employer is the judge of whether or not the training met their needs. And to put it bluntly, if workplace training is not organised around the needs and the realities of that employer, they won't participate in the formal system and the training will go back to being informal. All employers train their staff, but it needs to be simple and not to impose additional costs or compliance. That way, we keep the employer directly involved in the assessment process, and the training needs to fit around the workplace because that's the only way it works. We are now in a position where we've seen the future of work arriving very quickly, hastened by the pandemic, and we now need to get serious about delivering lifelong learning. That means bringing together the world of work with the world of learning and supporting all of our workplaces to become sites of learning. Thank you very much. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Josh. Wow, indeed, with such a high rate of on-the-job training and also workplace training, I think the answer is very straightforward. You can find it out that is such kind of training is not for big corporations, just as Josh has shown us. Even small companies are very interested in workplace training. Okay, thank you, Josh, again. Patrick, could you share with us how HKSAR implements workplace training in the aircraft maintenance industry?
Hi, everybody, and good afternoon. I think this afternoon, Kelvin, myself, and Carl will talk about something in the real world. You know, when you finish your school or before you finish school, how you actually can, learn from actual workplace. So, in fact, I'm start my career as an apprentice, almost 40 years now in aviation. So it's a rewarding, but it's also a long-term investment. So aviation is a bit unique that we train our own people, and the system is all over the place, all over the world, whether it's in US or in UK, in Europe, in Hong Kong. We have a system to recognize our mechanic, so ensure an engineer, so ensure that what we've done on aircraft is safe. So recently we have like VTC provide additional help for us to do a lot of basic training and also have aircraft maintenance school in Europe. But in fact, at the end of the day, you still need an aircraft to work on. And most important that the workplace training give us opportunity to talk to our staff, our future mechanic engineer every day about safety. Think about safety, talk about safety, live about safety, so that people can travel safely in the air. So first of all, we are now 70 years old now, HKSAR, so we're still growing. And this year we celebrate our 7 years. And we do our training for more than 50 years. We have our own exam, own training school, and we train at least 100 people every year. So you see, most important, the training is we have trained our mechanic and also our engineer. So what they done is they have classroom training, learn about aircraft, the system, the structure, but also on-job training. So for engineer, minimum you need 3.5 years, and 2 years is on-job training to ensure that they know inside out the aircraft, but most important, the safety and quality of how to maintain aircraft. So also we train mechanic as well. Engineer can only do some of job. Majority of job need to be done by mechanic. So the mechanic also need to be trained according to a training scheme. So 2.5 months in the classroom, and then 2.5 months in the workshop. They still haven't touched the aircraft. So finally, they spend 7 months to touch the aircraft under supervision before they can actually work on the aircraft. So the system is very robust and ensure that our people are qualified as a good mechanic to work on aircraft. So they all teach by experienced people, what we call SIFU, master. And then they graduate, we celebrate their graduation and hope that they can have their career aspiration in aviation forever. So you see the photos show that they're working under the wing in the line maintenance environment in the Hong Kong airport, working under a landing gear. The top left is an engineer who's doing inspection on aircraft. So hope that this PowerPoint will give you a general information about aircraft maintenance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, aircraft maintenance and training is surely very interesting and challenging. And well, we have agreements of the structured maintenance program of HKSAR that I think many online or here is interested in. Okay, Carl, who is now in Hong Kong, somewhere in his office and online. Could you talk about how Scania collaborates with the education providers and also your recruitment and retention strategies for those who has completed your apprenticeship? Carl, please.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation to participate in this important seminar. Before coming into those questions, let me talk a little bit about our company, Scania, and what we do. Scania Hong Kong is a wholly owned Scania company here in Hong Kong. We sold our first trucks in 1982 and subsidiary here since 2008. We sell trucks, buses, coaches, and engines. And we are determined to drive the shift towards sustainable transport solutions. We are part of the Volkswagen Group, among another 11 brands. Here you can see the locations where we are servicing and maintaining our trucks, coaches, and buses in Hong Kong. In total, 5 workshops. And we have a parts warehouse. We have our head office here in Hong Kong in the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, where we also have R&D activities. Mainly focusing on how we can use vehicle data to make our customers' operation even more efficient in the transport logistics. So working at Scania Hong Kong then, it's all about the people. We are seeing our employees really as the foundation of our company, and this is how you can see our growth company. It all comes down to our teams and how we provide good development opportunities for our teams. And this leads us on to the apprentice program, which is such an important part of our operation. We work very closely together with VTC IVE in recruiting apprentices and also providing workshop places for EMSD. It's important to have a structure in our programs from day one, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when a bit later on. It's a combination, of course, of different learning environments, online classroom, and job learning at Scania and in our service network, and also in the functions that we have here in the office at the park. As I mentioned, a little bit the Scania culture. We say the Scania family feeling is very important, and this is also part of the training program to work with our core values and team building. Part of this was in 2019, we had the opportunity to invite the VTC students to come to Sweden and to visit our headquarters and our technical school and our factory there, which was really positive. Recognition and feedback, always important of this kind of training and the package and the program. And here we can see one event, which is the Outstanding Apprentice Award. And happy to have two of our apprentices winning in 2018 and in 2019 as well. So finalizing and summarizing about the future development that we see. Well, there is a constant increased complexity of the technologies, driven mainly by the megatrends in the industry, which is electrification, autonomy, and connectivity. And of course, this will continue to reinforce the need to have more competencies and to develop also the cooperation and the collaboration we have with our education providers, VTC, EMS. So we're very positive about that. And with that, I thank you and leave the word back to you.
Thank you, Carl. So what we learned is that the collaborations between the training institution, the educational institution, and also the company is very important. And another key area of success retaining your apprentices is to give them the opportunity to grow and to recognize their achievements, to build up their culture along the Scania's cultures, and also to build up a team. That is the key of success. Thank you, Carl, once again. Finally, we wish to invite Kelvin to share with us. Kelvin, could you share with us the future of workplace training? Well, how do you think the new technology can be leveraged to improve the apprentice training?
Good. Good afternoon, everybody. One of the things that I like to use to put into context of vocational training here in Hong Kong is this particular image here. And there's a Chinese saying that goes with it, Si Long Kung Seng. And it's really about the progression of the generations through the different types of work. You have the farmer, the construction worker, the professional businessman. At the end, it should actually be the professor or the academic, but in the modern world, it could as well be the gig economy entrepreneur or the tech entrepreneur. But what we need to do in the context of vocational, and particularly for me, the craft training, is to bring more of the digital back into the craft worker. Some of the challenges that we hear about, or more particularly the excuses we hear about, is the trade-off of the efficiency of a qualified worker versus an apprentice, and people forgetting that one day they started off their life as an apprentice and weren't as productive, say, as they are once they've finished their training. We also have the challenge of the aging population and the aging demographic of construction or technical workers. Here in Hong Kong, we have the context of a more educated population and the ambition of parents for their children. So cultural issues in the context of a city economy. And then other smaller excuses of costly training facilities and all of these other things, are more traditional ways of doing the apprenticeship. The old master and apprentice, or in Hong Kong, the Sifu way of training. But we also have inadequate adoption of technology in the space. So in the age of digital transformation, the next generation that are coming into the workforce come tech ready. They've grown up with technology in their hands since they've been school children. So it's very much about how we make the workplace interesting for the people that are now coming in. In terms of the solid hands-on experience joined together with technologies, it's important for organizations to make sure that we're moving ahead. We're not confined by our traditional routes, but we're very much part of where general business is going. And so it's important that when people come into the workforce, that they see that type of technology being adopted by us. And it's very much theory plus experience plus technology. In terms of the benefits that we've got the technical know-how coming into the organisation and pushing it into the industry. We're strengthening our workforce to support the business growth, and we're fulfilling an obligation to nurture our young talent and replenish the skills in society, although it's being upgraded, being tech ready. And in terms of the reverse mentoring, it's those tech ready digital natives together with the guys that are more experienced already in the workforce and exchanging those skill sets that they have. And future-proofing the trades, not trade plus technology provided by somebody else, but trade-ready technology, the tradesmen to be able to utilize and adopt technology in the workplace. And so for me, very much when we move our people around, it's not just about moving them around and training them in the old way, but it's moving them around and getting used to the new technology that is throughout the industry, throughout our customers' premises, throughout our organizations, and is now being utilized in VTC and other organizations around the world when they're being trained on the route to qualifications. So that's just a little bit about what we look for at JEC. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Well, indeed, you have pointed out correctly very importantly that the youngsters are tech ready. And we have to think whether the workplace training itself is tech ready. That is, it's time that the technology is coming, digitalization is coming fast, but the training has to change as well. Even the trainees themselves are tech ready, but the training provisions, the training system, the framework itself have to be tech ready as well. That is a very important point. Okay, now back to the polling questions. Let's see how our online audience reacts to the first multiple choice polling questions. Now, the question has been displayed once again. Let me read it once more to recapitulate. The question is about what is the major factors that determines the provision of the best workplace training and learning opportunity for apprentices. So the result is, you have already seen it, 40% of the audience choose comprehensive assessment mechanism should be most important. 33% choose support from education provider. And then 20% choose the technology proficiency of the corporations. And 7% choose the size of the corporations. Well, this tells us that the size of the corporations is the least important. Well, I think I would like to ask our distinguished panelists to give a comment. George is from Skill International. He is our specialist and consultant on workplace training framework. Hey, George, how is your view? Do you find these answers, these preference surprising to you, or that is what you expect?
Yeah, I think I'm encouraged by that result, because I think when we look at something like assessment and comprehensive assessment, that is about the trust that people put in the credentials or the credits or the qualification that somebody earns. And so, you know, Kevin's touched on, and we've all touched on, the importance of digital and advanced technologies to kind of improve the way that we do workplace training. But in the end, our learner benefits and the industry benefits when the next employer can really trust in the fact that they've achieved to a standard, perhaps set by industry itself, and that there is, you know, there's a quality assurance that sits in behind the assessment, no matter how it was provided, on job, off the job, or increasingly as a convergence of those two things.
So that is what we expected. That is the system, the workplace training system, and how is it assessed is very important. The content itself is most important, not the company is providing or something like this. So that is what we expect. So that is why there's a very important message that we should bring home today. Okay, it's time for us to move on the discussion sections. We have the specialists and panelists here, and then I will talk with them one by one. And the first time, maybe I invite Carl, who is now online in Hong Kong. Carl, would you tell us more from the employer's point of view? how your organization nurtures the apprentices to equip them with various essential skills by workplace training. Carl?
Yes, we'll be happy to do that. First, I can mention that we have developed a comprehensive portfolio of technical trainings and training courses, so that is really possible for all apprentices to reach the full potential. That's the key. And then mentioning also about this program consists of 14 different segments. I mentioned briefly in my presentation, it's a combination of online, on-work training in our service network or here in the head office, and of course at the schools. Every apprentice is also trained in our global standards, which we are then applying globally. So that facilitates also an international career, if that is something that is interesting. Workplaces are, our workshops are modern facilities with leading edge technologies. And we're also here in this perspective, I can mention we're very proud of a cooperation with VTC to have provided modules, training modules, which they are using there since 2007. Also very interesting and happy to see the comprehensive assessment mechanism that was rated highly, because it's something that we're focusing on very much. We have a skills assessment framework, we call it, where both our HR team and our trainers all around the service network come together and assess together with the apprentice what is missing and how can that be developed further. So we're very proud of that, and that also that most of our apprentices then choose to continue after the apprentice is finished with an employment with us. It will, as I mentioned also, in the future be driven very much even more towards new technologies, and that is something that we're focusing much. So as a summary of this question, I was mentioning that we see apprentices then as a strategic choice for securing that we have really competent and well-trained staff, and that's why we put so much effort and really resources into the training of our apprentices.
Oh, thank you, Carl. That is a comprehensive views about what contributes to good workplace training. Well, now suppose, let's say a company has decided to take in apprentices or even more apprentices. What are we trying to achieve by the end of the training? That's the question that we should tackle. Kelvin, well, as one of the major E&M companies in Hong Kong, would you share with us the training goals of your apprenticeships and the career progression opportunities for young apprentices in your company? For example, how would you rotate the trainees amongst the various workplaces in your company so that they can learn more?
Okay. I think the thing with us within JEC is we look beyond the apprenticeship. So once we are working through the apprenticeship, through the 3-year program, obviously we're bringing these youngsters into the employment environment in their late teens. They've come straight out of the academic world at school. And so we need to understand what they're about. They don't understand engineering, they don't understand the work environment, and we need to understand also what they're learning whilst they're here at VTC at the same time, and slowly push their skill sets as we work through that. But also we need to be working on their soft skill sets. So we rotate them amongst different supervisors, different customers, different team members, so that they're building up their soft skill sets as well. And then beyond that, we're also looking at what do they actually enjoy working on? What do they really want to be doing? So you need to make it enjoyable for them. We're all aware of the challenges in attracting talent and keeping talent in the industry, and particularly within the trades. And so we need to make it an enjoyable and rewarding workspace as well. So as well as stretching them in terms of their technical capability, we also need to look at what the plan is for them beyond the apprenticeship. So whole life learning as well. Can we continue to stretch them? If they've done a mechanical apprenticeship, do we put in place training for them to become a registered electrical worker? Then do they have an opportunity to maybe become a supervisor, to become an engineer, to become a manager? We're very proud within JEC to have many people in the organisation at management level that have actually come through the apprenticeship scheme. So it's not just about what we look at through the apprenticeship, but it's looking at how those individuals can grow in their careers with JEC or within the industry itself. So we're very proud to see people to think beyond apprenticeship, and for us as an organisation to think beyond apprenticeship. And I'm always very proud to stand at the apprenticeship graduation ceremonies to talk to the youngsters about this now being the starting point of where they go to next, not just the end of the journey.
Yes, thank you, Calvin. So that is why your training program is always oversubscribed. So many applications, and the trainees are so they're so admire of your training, and they will probably go to a senior levels such as yours.
I hope so.
Okay, after hearing from Carl and Calvin on how they implement the workplace training in the companies and the benefits that give, I think you should have a better idea of why workplace training is beneficial to your company. But how will it be in the future? So that is the time for our second pop-up polling question. Now the question is now on the screen. The question is, to which direction will the future development of workplace training go? Do you think it is a shortened training period? Or B, incorporation of innovation and technology? Or it will be C, incorporation of virtual and online training? Or will you think that it is all of the above? It's time for polling. You will have about 8 minutes time from now for polling. And after I discuss with two other guest speakers, we will review the questions and answers together. So you may start the second poll now. And while you are polling, let's continue with the discussion sections. You may recall that in the sharing sections earlier, George and Calvin talked about the general perceptions and perhaps the statements in the cities today regarding the workplace training. Indeed, in some developed countries, the number of newly hired apprentices is dropping, as shown in George's case. Now, I would like to ask Patrick, yes, in view of the increasing competitive labor market, how can the industry or a company better attract the youngsters to join the apprenticeship in aircraft maintenance?
Actually, it's very difficult. And you know, the demand is always higher than the supply because you see more and more aircraft nowadays. And the number of mechanic or even pilot is behind the number of aircraft manufactured by Boeing and Airbus. Also, that Hong Kong airport is a little bit far away from the city. So on top of it is young generation may be feeling difficult to working in environment like outdoor, physical work. So these all the challenge we are dealing with. But we are a little bit advantage. Actually, people love aircraft. So a lot of people really want to work on aircraft, but they don't know how to find a job inside a maintenance company like us or in airline like Cathay Pacific. So we do a lot of high school visit. We have school tour in the hangar. We do a career talk in the in the university, and we have summer intern to get people experience a few months working in the hangar in the aircraft. And also on top of it, I also think that the company image, the social responsibility also help to attract next generation to join the industry. And also you see the polling question about comprehensive assessment. The beauty of aircraft maintenance is we have this comprehensive assessment for many years, approved by government authority like Hong Kong Civil Aviation Department or European Aviation Authority or FAA. So this all well determined. So the staff know that what they learn and what they will be achieved at the end of the training program. So on top of that, they also have a very clear career path in the training program. So that will help us for staff have career aspiration in the aviation industry. But also bear in mind that the most challenging bit is the execution. When you run a program, you need to ensure that the program always being monitored, the staff being managed, both technically, also emotion. Because today, even this morning, a lot of speakers, or even Kelvin, talk about soft skill, social competence. And the next generation really need to work together with the experienced people to share the pain, of course, and dealing with the challenge, enjoy the fun. So we need to build a team, people work together, so they stay with us to treat this as a long-term career. So that's how we deal with our trainee, so they become successful in the aviation industry. So probably I conclude like this.
Yes, thank you. It's important to go out of the company, go to the community, to the schools, to meet the parents, to meet the youngsters, to attract them to your trade. And then you also once again point out the importance of a comprehensive assessment and the execution, how to ensure the quality output. Yeah.
But also that, the other thing is people also talk about technology. Aviation also are actually gradually, looking into digitalization or material like composite. So when you see more and more new generation aircraft, make people feeling that, aviation actually quite challenging in terms of technology, because we need to balance between safety and technology. We can't just put technology in the aircraft without considering safety. So, but this also an opportunity for the next generation people working on aircraft. So.
Yes, thank you. Well, we have talked a lot about the comprehensive assessment and executions. Now we have George from the Skills International, who is the consultant on these aspects. Well, you have been working with many employers for workplace training scheme. So in your opinion, George, how can workplace training be further improved to better suit the need of the workplaces? George?
Thanks, Director Peng. I want to say two things, and I think both of them have to do with these. The rise of digital technologies, to do what we are doing right now and bringing people in real time on video. And actually, I heard both of these things in Director Heinenen's keynote earlier in the conference today. One is about the ability to capture informal learning more easily, so that we can move vocational education on from just being a certificate on the wall to being something like an electronic portfolio of what you've done before, and producing evidence of your own work. And that can be authenticated and used for formal assessment as well. And the second thing that I think that's doing is it's actually dissolving the hard distinction between on-job learning and off-job learning. So there's a course over here, and there's what happens on a work site over here, and hopefully there's a good blend and the good learning connections for the learner. But actually, I think now what we're seeing is that the theoretical components of courses, again, through devices, can actually be handled asynchronously on demand. This is what I think we're all talking about now with the rise of digital skilling. And again, COVID-19 is accelerating all of these trends. So for me, employers are certainly asking all of our vocational systems to be more adaptive and responsive, and that's right. And I think technology helps that. But I think in the end, what we really need to be looking at is how do we make sure that informal and formal are coming together, and on-job and off-the-job are coming together in a way that helps that learner have that progression and that pathway in their career and move around industries and move up industries. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, George. That's a very important on the job and off the job. That is the collaborations between the employers and also the educational institution is one thing that is important and that we should not forget about. Okay, it's time for us to review the polling questions together with our audience. Now, first, let's see what is the polling question. The question is, to which direction will the future development of workplace training go? 68% of us choose all of the above. And 15% choose incorporation of innovation and technology. 14% choose incorporation of virtual and online training. And 3% choose shortened training period. That is, well, actually 3 of them are equally important. But if you wish to know which one is more important, the 2, B and C are more or less equally important. 15% and 40%, and 3% a shortened training period. So that is something, let me see whether there is any comment from the floor or coming from our guests. Kevin, you have some idea?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, particularly in the context of where we are in the world at the moment, and where maybe old behaviours have been changed somewhat by being forced into particular behaviours of where we are now. So the most interesting one there, I think, is shortened training period. And we all seem to become less patient than we were in the old days. We need things now. With the likes of innovation and technology and virtual and online learning, then certainly the shortened training period would seem to go somewhat with that. But then when we listen to what Patrick was saying in terms of actually having to make sure from the safety aspects that we don't try and rush towards the qualification, then we need to make sure we strike a balance with that. But certainly with the likes of technology, virtual learning, online learning, virtual learning in the classroom, they can certainly help us to accelerate some of the different modules of learning, for example, or maybe complement some of the ways in which we've learned in the past.
Yes, I think that the results also show that the importance of the latest technology, how to apply the latest technology in our training. The application of such technology itself can shorten the training period. And also, I recalled one of the speakers, distinguished speakers in the morning have talked about now, the workplace training or education is training. It's changing. The important thing is not teach about what they should know, but to teach them how to get the information themselves, so that they can learn themselves. So that is why, well, very important is that the message is that we need continuous education and continuous training through the lifetime. So, well, shorten the training period a bit, will not necessarily sacrifice the standard, because they are expected to learn throughout the life, throughout their career. Okay, I think, well, time is running a bit short, and it is the sections now for the Q&A questions. We are delighted to hear the sharing from the experts, and I think those now in the DI in Hong Kong, and also our audience online in Hong Kong and around the world may have some questions raised. You have been asking the question online and also showing whether you are interested to know more about the certain questions. So let me see what the questions are here. Perhaps we take the questions from the floor first. Yes? We have a youngster here, yeah, in the DI. What's the question?
Good afternoon. My name is Ewan Kai. I'm from Ivy Morrison Hill. I'm interested in knowing more about how to make the apprenticeship system work better for both the employees and business. Thank you.
Yes. Well, maybe I ask Patrick, how about your view?
You know, I think the key is the world changing quite fast now, right? So you need to update the apprentice scheme from time to time. Say, for example, technology, the old way of doing classroom training, the old way of, you know, transferring messages, transferring information and knowledge will be different. So in order to make the apprentice scheme working, you know, better and better every day, we need to continue to review the apprentice scheme. And also that we know that, you know, for the student side or for the apprentice, they also have different aspiration and desire. So communication is extremely important to help us to understand the need and the desire of the apprentice. Because when they feel they love and enjoy the apprentice scheme, they will be more successful. So that communication, monitoring, caring of the apprentice is important. On the other hand, the technical bit, the structure bit, because, you know, world is changing so fast. As a company, responsible company, we need to review the scheme from time to time, ensure they keep up to date, and also practical and useful. Because the problem with students is if they learn something that they find out that they cannot use it or they don't know how to use it, there will be a failure and also waste of time for company and the staff itself. So probably I would say that, it's more like close monitoring, continue changing, and continue improvement from both angles.
Yes, thank you. Well, that is what, well, in the morning, the one speaker said that is a dynamic training scheme. That is to suit the latest development in technology, the latest development in the employers' requirements, and also that is a two-way process. We have to look after the interests of the youngsters, of the trainees, and match it with the requirement of the company in setting up workplace training. Well, the next question, perhaps we choose it amongst those raised online. One question that is asked online is, well, that have a lot of support, 15 likes, that is a lot of people would like to know more about the answer of this question. The question is, mentors are important to the success of workplace training. Can the panelists share with us how they identified suitable persons to serve as mentors? This time, perhaps I ask Carl to give us your insights about how do you select mentors in your companies? Yes, Carl, please.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say that we didn't mention very much about mentorship in our program, but it is an important part of the success of the apprenticeship program as a whole. It's adding a lot of value for the apprentice, but of course also for the one who is mentoring. It's a possibility to get new influences about new ways of thinking. So it's really something that is a mutual benefit we see for the company as a whole. The base, what we have as a base is the individual development plan, and it is the mentor who is following the apprentice throughout the whole program and having that as a platform to identify where focus needs to be put in order to develop or to find new areas to develop. It is very much how to find the question there, how to find good mentors. We believe very much in raising the hand and saying that yes, I would be interested in this. It comes, of course, with a big responsibility from our side as a company to communicate the benefits of mentoring. And there are so many good things with mentoring. So fortunately, we have seen a lot of interest in our company, both taking on the mentorship role and from the apprentices also then later on when they start their work to become mentors. So it's an important and a positive aspect of the program, definitely.
Well, indeed, I have come across staff who are interested to become mentors and some who are definitely not interested to become mentors. Well, we have so many specialists today. May I ask the question, how should the company motivate or energize our experienced supervisors to become mentors? What are your views? Yes?
I think one of the things that we've experienced is that actually not just the mentees, but the mentors themselves need to be given some guidelines and some training in what's expected from this relationship. It's very much a trust that will be established between the mentee and the mentor. And so you have to establish the parameters on which the mentorship will take place. And quite often there are natural mentors within the organization. There are people that are not so comfortable but have a lot to offer. So I think it's important, first of all, that you provide those guidelines. And for me, you need to look at the different types of setting in which the mentorship takes place, whether it's within the same department or you provide somebody out of the department, whether you provide somebody in the reporting line, off the reporting line. There's many different things that you need to consider. The single most important thing is that there is the trust established very early on in that relationship, and also some of the soft skill matching between the individuals. So certain people may be suited more to be mentored by others in the organization. And it doesn't just happen at the junior levels of the organization. We've had discussions earlier today about how this mentoring can go right the way on through to the executive level in the organisation. So as people make the transition, say, from an apprentice to an engineer, then engineers to managers and managers to board level, people need to be developed all the way up through the organisation. And some of our most experienced mentors are people that are actually learning themselves. So some of the feedback I've had from mentors that have already retired from the organisation say that they continue to learn from the dialogue that they're having with those that they're mentoring. So for me, it's two-way, and I used a term earlier about reverse mentoring. So especially when we're talking in the context of technology, it's what the youngsters coming into the organisation can also teach up the line and make sure that it's a rewarding relationship both ways.
Yes, that's a good point. I think time is running short, and there's only the opportunity for one more question. Well, I think we have talked about the durations of workplace training. Though there is not a high percentage, but some has mentioned about a shortened training. Well, what is your views about a more flexible training schemes? For example, if we should consider setting up a milestone checkpoint such as the examination in the middle of the workplace training to see whether the training can cut short by a bit. I think George is the consultant on this aspect. George, what is your view about this approach?
Oh, I could say a lot of things about that. I mean, certainly you can, I think, be quite efficient in the way that you assess through likes of professional conversation and the recognition of current competency. A lot of what we do is assessing people who have already learned on the job. The employer was the teacher, or their supervisor was the teacher. And what we're doing is coming in and assessing that against a standard. That can be done pretty efficiently. I think, though, if we are looking over the sort of the success overall, there's a lot of talk, of course, about micro-credentials and shortening things up. I think it is important for countries to look at their frameworks in that regard and make sure that what we are doing is supporting lifelong learning, that people can augment their skills over time. And so, yes, you can wrap that up and call it a qualification, but then you can add to that, or you can just refresh, or when a new piece of technology comes along, you can just do that bit. The importance we said before is about maintaining the consistency and the quality around that assessment, whether we're looking at something very small or something like a full qualification.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I think time flies. This 1 hour section is coming to an end very soon. And we should all understand why workplace training counts, as well as how it could help develop our young talents. I believe it also goes well for other non-engineering industries that we are talking about in the next sections. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes these thematic sections. Thank you very much for the fruitful and interactive discussions from experts in Hong Kong and also from New Zealand. Lastly, I would like all of you to join the next thematic sections to be held in about 15 minutes' time. Stay tuned. Thank you very much, and especially to our specialists and panelists. Bye-bye.
Thank you to Mr. Pang and the panelists for the deep insights. And thank you so much for your participation.
You'll hear more from the young voice of the World Skills Champions Trust and also how skills can change lives.
Stay with us and more exciting things are ahead. See you all again soon.
See you.